Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. Joining us is Dr. Paul Crooks, no stranger to the show, and we're going to be speaking about World Veterinary Day and fake medical practitioners, and we're going to touch on a few more things. Of course, Dr. Crooks is the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Veterinary Association and founder of the Tobago Animal Hospital. Good morning, Dr. Crooks, and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again.
It's a pleasure to have you. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well. Woke up a bit earlier than usual, but still doing quite well.
Just a bit earlier, and we appreciate it. We want to go straight into the conversation because we have a lot to cover. But one of the first things is let's go back to Saturday, April 27th. It was World Veterinarian Day, and the theme was veterinarians are essential health workers. Can you expound on that?
Oh, yeah. So for World Vet Day in Trinidad and Tobago, thankfully, we are already recognized as essential workers. You know that vets are absolutely necessary in maintaining food security globally. They play a necessary part in prevention of disease in livestock, in prevention of transmission of zoonotic diseases, and of course, in research into production and so on. But in Trinidad and Tobago, where we are already recognized as essential, while we had our general meeting around that time, we didn't have any specific event to promote the team. Rather, we tried to support our vets globally. So there were hashtags trending, vets are essential, and we had vets share images on social media of them performing their essential work. In fact, even now in disaster risk management plans, we have to think about and include pet animals in that, because they are such an essential part of persons' lives that really, if we do not include pet animals, and when you consider that vets are responsible primarily for health maintenance in pet animals, then you realize that we're not just essential from a food security standpoint, but also for people's well-being and overall families and family structure.
That is something that is so true and so well timed in the conversation because, of course, May is Mental Health Month, and there is sometimes nothing more supportive than having your furry friend, or as we now say, dog son, and so much more,
That's
our
right.
pet children.
Yes.
Now, we do want to touch on some of the things that have been happening in Tobago as well when it comes to animals and wildlife. But before we get to that, let's keep speaking about vets, particularly with the fact that there are some fake practitioners out there, and it's an issue that does need to be tackled. First off the bat, how do we identify a fake practitioner?
Well, that is very difficult for members of the public, unfortunately, and it's across the board. This is not just in veterinary medicine. We have fake medical practitioners in every realm of medicine. And the difficult part for a client is that you go to someone who speaks confidently and talks about diagnosis and treatment, and how do you know that that person is registered? First of all, a client, when you go to a practitioner, whether it be a vet or otherwise, you can ask to see their qualifications. That's the first thing. Of course, there are the possibilities of fake qualifications being presented. What may be more difficult is the determination if these persons are actually registered to practice, where we have, for example, with the vets, we have the Vet Surgeons Registration Board that registers vets, and they examine the qualifications and determine that these people are qualified to practice, and then provide them with the registration that allows them to practice. However, fake practitioners obviously don't need to go through that if they are not qualified in the first place. So you find that these people are practicing, and the assumption is made by members of the public that these persons are in fact trained and qualified professionals, and they go to them. And I mean, sometimes members of the public are aware, and they choose these practitioners simply because of reduced prices or what they assume to be cheaper, because they may not even know what the vets charge. And unfortunately, these practitioners put the animals at grave risk. Not only is there misuse and abuse of medication, there are misdiagnoses, but we've even seen malpractice where persons have been performing surgeries, and not just nail clipping, basic surgery type of thing. Rather, you have malpractice persons, fraudulent practitioners who are performing spays, which are ovariohysterectomies, removal of ovary and womb. That's a major surgery. As much as every vet should learn to do it by the time they graduate vet school, it's a major surgery. And we've had animals that bleed to death where there was no sterile procedure performed, so the animals end up with peritonitis or infections of the abdominal cavity. And I mean, these are severe issues. If this were to happen in a human patient, it would be unacceptable. However, the laws as they are don't clearly define what the specific roles of a veterinarian are versus, let's say, a vet student or even a veterinary paraprofessional, as far as is there a basic surgery like maybe a piglet castration that a veterinary paraprofessional is able to do? And if that is the case, then can we say clearly in law that vets are to perform all surgeries, or do we make those exceptions? And then from the time you allow that exception, then what other surgeries can a paraprofessional perform? And so you kind of go down this route of with paraprofessionals in particular, because we've seen this where they work alongside vets for some time, maybe as a vet technician. And then eventually they figure like a mechanic. We have many mechanics here who are trained because they've oil changed for the last 5 years. They go out and they start doing their own thing. And again, it puts many patients at risk. And it is something that we absolutely condemn.
It really is something that has to be condemned. I mean, what you've just shared is so horrific, not just, of course, for our pets and for livestock, but for the family members as well. And it is something that definitely does need to be treated with. And it's interesting as well that you've mentioned it, because it seems as though we have seen a rise in some sort of malpractice cases coming out, which shows that we need to continue to raise this awareness and bring that change. And speaking of raising awareness, of course, something that has been a big piece of conversation, it's been controversial on social media, would have been the devastating shark attack that took place in Tobago last week. And we've seen coming out of this what has been described as vigilante killings of sharks. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, from the Vet Association standpoint, I have to give credit and commendation to the Tobago House of Assembly, the Division of Food Security, my division actually. But they put out a statement condemning the action. There was a video circulated on social media showing mature and immature sharks being killed, being slaughtered, being cut up for meat. First of all, sharks are apex predators. And yes, they are an important part of our culture, our diet, our meals, certain meals that we consume. But at the same time, these are intelligent animals, sentient animals. They are very aware. They feel fear and pain. And the majority of sharks are not responsible for the attack that happened. In fact, most shark-people interactions are peaceful. That the shark that was involved in the attack was very likely going to be injured or infected. For some reason, that animal very likely would not have been able to compete with other sharks, and so had to move closer to shore to try to find prey animals that there's less competition. And that's basically usually what happens with a shark attack. The shark itself is sick. However, what's really important is that shark conservation is something we should be fighting for, because now we have the lionfish, for example, in this region. The lionfish is an invasive species that eats everything in the water, basically. So immature sharks are eaten by lionfish. And because sharks take such a long time to grow and reach maturity, the destruction of young sharks is really unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable. But moreover, there are places in the world, China in particular, where shark fin soup is a delicacy. And for those persons, they collect sharks from the water, chop off the fins from the top of the shark, toss the shark back in. The shark is alive, but the shark basically starves to death. The shark can't swim. So you have a shark in water just bleeding to death or becoming infected or starving to death. And these animals are suffering. And we do not want to promote the idea that as a result of this attack, persons should go out there and take action themselves targeting sharks. The only way that sharks should be caught by fisher folk is as a bycatch. They try to catch all the other things they regularly catch, and a shark is in there. Whoops, it happens. Understandable. But they should not be targeted, and also they should not be made to suffer in this way. And we really strongly condemn that action.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Crooks. Hopefully we're going to have you back on the show soon, because we need to go a bit further into this conversation when it comes to sharks particularly. You did share some gems that I know the nation needs to know. So looking forward to having you back, Dr. Crooks. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Paul Crooks joining us this morning to speak about World Vet Day and, in fact, a plethora of topics when it comes to animals. So stay tuned. We're going to be back in a short while after this break.